So co-housing and living in community is not for everybody. For some people, they really want to live away from people. They want to close their blinds, be on a big piece of land, and be very private. And that's great. That's fine for them. And for others, they want to have more sense of community, more interaction. And for those people that would like that sense of community, co-housing is a beautiful setup that can naturally provide that. One interesting thing that we've noticed is that a lot of introverts seek out co-housing, and because it has this natural flow of being able to retreat into your house or to go out into community and just have spontaneous interaction, maybe go to the common house, and then when you're ready, just go home. And for couples where there's one introvert and one extrovert, it's pretty ideal because they can regulate and go in and out as they need to, and the other can just stay longer. Whereas in suburbia, say, the couple might drive to an event and then one wants to go home and the other has to kind of wait, and they have to negotiate that. Where here it's more fluid. So having that sense of community and the ability to interact spontaneously and to organize. So for instance, the coronavirus, we're able to really organize together around how to support one another. What are the ground rules? What do we need to do about the common house? How are kids going to be interacting safely, or as well as even people doing grocery shopping for others is another way. So we can come together during times like this to really support each other. We also have a number of homes closer together. So in suburbia or a lot of single family homes, there's the yard and the garages and everything's gotten further and further away from each other. And in co-housing, we intentionally come closer together where we're sharing walls because we're condos, and we're having the buildings closer. And part of that is so that we bump elbows more, we interact more, and also to preserve the land as much as we can as well. That supports both.
Another reason that people choose to live in community is for their children. And I think that really is a huge part of being in community for not only the parents, but also the people who live in the neighborhood, because it gives children an opportunity to get to know many adults in their life and people of all ages. It provides them with regular, safe contact with a lot of different diverse family styles. And I think it has been that's been the most important part of co-housing for me, and all the reasons that I like it, being able to raise my kids here and the way that they kind of learn to behave around groups of people and keep them connected. It's really invaluable.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that. In addition to the kid and adult relationship building, I've noticed that the kids themselves are really good about the relationships that they form, and they're more expansive. You know, I think it would be typical that kid, you know, if a kid is a year older or younger than you, that they don't exist in a regular setting or at school. But here, and we've got, you know, teenagers hanging out with, you know, 6 and 7 and 8-year-olds, and they're all one group, and you know, they really look out for each other, and I think they've really benefited from, you know, expanding their horizons with other kids.
I've noticed with being here for some time that it really does attract those young families that are wanting perhaps other adults and more support perhaps, and also people that have their kids have just left home and now they're wondering what's next. And we've been here long enough that the little kids are now teenagers or college kids, and we have the whole spread, it seems, of ages now.
And for people who have never had children and who choose not to, this is an opportunity for them to get to know kids, and also as they age, to age in place. This is a great place to do that. People come and stay, and they say it keeps them young.
I remember a time some years ago when one of our young folks who was a music major, and she had a final special concert, something like that. And 14 different families went to hear her graduation presentation. It was great.
Yeah.
So I'll give a little flip side of it too. And my teenagers, grew up here, they were born here, and by the time they got older, the fact that there were so many eyes around was kind of bothersome to them, and I still thought that was a plus, but they didn't think so. And but now that my son is coming back from college to visit, he's been telling me how much he appreciates it. He couldn't wait to get out of here, but now that he's seeing the other side, I think he's appreciating it more. And I'll give another vignette. This can get cut out later. Sandra Greenstone, she raised 4 kids in co-housing, and they've all gone on to college and stuff. And kind of in that same pattern of fighting it a bit when they were teenagers, but now that they're even beyond college, some of them are talking about wanting to move back, buy their own unit and move back. Yeah. So we've been around long enough where we're getting that full circle. Co-housing is usually, typically has a very flat decision-making structure, instead of a typical condo where we might have 4 or 5 board members that decide everything. In co-housing, we decide everything as a group, and we typically use some form of consensus to do that, which is very different from majority rules that most people are used to maybe in their workplace. And the way that consensus works is we have 1 or 2 meetings a month, and the expectation is that everybody that can make the meeting will participate in that. Even if you don't have a dog in the race, so to speak, it might not be a topic that's interesting to you. Eventually there will be a topic that's interesting to you, and you want everybody to participate and make the decision as good as it can be. A typical decision might start off with the group kind of looking at a particular problem, deciding whether the problem is big enough that the entire group needs to be figuring out a solution to it. And then we'll brainstorm different ideas on how to solve the problem. And we might do go-arounds. We might break out into small groups to do some of that work together. And a key part of it is that we kind of give ourselves enough time to come up with a solution. And what that means for enough time, it could take 6 months to a year to develop a solution to a really big problem, like maybe redoing our work system, something like that. It doesn't always take that long. But the positive side of it is that when you take that time and people are participating, there's a lot of buy-in to the policy that you eventually decide on. And but again, the downside is that it can take some time. So we really do recommend that anybody interested in co-housing, come to a couple of community meetings and find out how that works. See if you can handle a meeting that goes a couple hours. See if you can handle the give and take involved in consensus, and really see if that is something that is for you. Anyone else want to add?
Yeah, one of the things that seems really important is that we make decisions that are best for the community, not our individual preference. And it does take patience and flexibility and that openness to other opinions. And otherwise you'll just be frustrated and irritated, annoyed, and that doesn't make it enjoyable for anybody. So
There's definitely a learning curve when it comes to making decisions in groups of people like this, but it is incredibly enriching. And I've had friends tell me that co-housing is like the most expensive personal learning experience of their lives. And it is an ongoing experience. I can't imagine the person I would have been without the tools that I've learned in co-housing about how to facilitate, how to communicate and listen to one another, how to solve conflicts. So all of those have been like really valuable tools in all parts of my life, including my professional one. And the experience of getting to know my neighbors along the way has been like an incredible boon as well.
Yeah, and I'll build on that a little bit. Yeah, just the process of making decisions together. I think there's an intimacy there that builds, you know, so like everything we do, from our physical layout to the way we decide things together, it's to build connections with each other. So even if we're dealing with a challenging topic, you know, when you get through it, you know, there's more relationship when you're done.
So some of our decisions are made in large groups. We call that our plenary work. And so the community will get together once or twice a month to make decisions together that way. In addition, a lot of our work is done by committee. And so our groups, small groups of interest will get together and work on a particular topic. They'll have a task to do together, or there'll be an ongoing group that meets monthly or regularly to work on things for the garden or the common house or the work system, or any ways that we can benefit the community. There are usually people who are available to help with those things. And we meet in person, but we also have a great technology system available to us to communicate via email using the Google Drive system, and also our own personalized piece of software developed by one of our residents that helps tie it all together. It's been really valuable to have that expertise available as we develop as a set of communities, and to stay connected with one another and make our documents easily searchable.
One of the things that I love about the committee work is that it's an opportunity to take ownership over the community, like take an area and really become involved rather than just being somebody that's living here. You're taking ownership over maybe the gardens or maintenance work or finance or meals. And it's a smaller group of people, so you really get to know those members even more in depth. And we want everybody involved in these meetings and in a committee or two. That's how we all get to know each other and participate.
In two of our communities, at Touchstone and at Great Oak, we have designated work hours that each person is responsible for. Each month they do a certain number of hours that can vary depending on how much work there is to be done. Right now our work is very specific because our common house is closed. A lot of our committees have kind of shrunk the number of hours that are required, but we're working a lot outside. We're doing a lot of grounds work. We're doing organizational work. We're leading these tours. And there's a bunch of other things that need to be done, even in the absence of having a common house. And having that opportunity to work together as a community, both outside and inside, is really another way that we stay connected to one another.
Sunward has a kind of a purely volunteer system, and we call it all carrot, no stick. And so the idea being that you do the work that you want to do. And, you know, so we don't track the hours specifically, but, you know, the work does get done. And again, you know, work is not a bad word in the work systems. It's not, we're not doing it to save money by doing the work ourselves. We're doing it to build connections with each other. So, you know, the work should be something that you enjoy doing. If you are out of town or you have a family circumstance, you can always ask for an abatement or have a job where you can mainly work on your computer if you can't do anything strenuous. So the work system is a pretty key part of co-housing and keeping us all connected.
Yeah, so we have work hours that it generally varies a lot, but it's about 8 to 10 hours a month per adult, depending. If you're on the snow team, it really just depends. You could be doing 8 hours a day. If you're on the watering team this weekend, you might not do anything because it's raining. So it really just depends on what you sign up for and what happens, right? If it's weather related, or if you're taking minutes during a 2-hour meeting, you kind of know when it starts and when it ends. If you're on the snow, it kind of depends on the weather. And yet it's so much fun to just say cook with others. I think as a nation, we're all noticing what it's like to be isolated, and it's much more enjoyable when we get to do things with others and how to find that connection. Or to garden together, or to even be out in the snow together. And it does keep our fees down a bit, but mostly it's about coming together and taking care of our spaces together and each other.